Welcome everybody to the 39th episode of Comic DNA, on which we will be discussing Lumberjanes by Shannon Walters, Grace Ellis, Noelle Stevenson, and Brooke A. Allen. First published by Boom Studios in 2014. I am Aaron Walter, and joining me today is the lovely and talented Miss Sara Rude. Sara, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's fun to be here, and I'm glad you asked me to do it.
Yes, well, I've been wanting to find a book to do with you for a while now. For people that are listening to this podcast may not be aware, Sara and I have worked together for many years. She's the regular colorist on Zero's Heroes, does the colors on Time Agent Z, and also do some of the full illustrations in the Zero's Heroes annuals.
Right.
And one of the covers too.
Yeah, the first annual cover.
The first annual cover, yeah.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
The Big Bird.
Yeah, that was fun.
I love that one. But you also have another comic that you do all by yourself.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's called How We Stay Sane at Work, and it started in 2013. Well, like any good comic, it kind of started before that and snowballed. It's all about bad work stories. And I collect these from all over the internet, from friends and family, and I illustrate them, and just kickstarted the book, so it's available now. Hopefully, by the time this airs, I might have figured out some kind of purchasing system for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just got my book today, in fact. So, but I read the proof, and it's a lot of fun stories in there. But anyway, when I asked you long ago, when if you wanted to do an episode of this podcast and if you had any books you wanted to talk about, I think you said you don't read a lot of comics, but you really, really like Lumberjanes.
Yes, and I think that was sometime around last Christmas when I had just gotten a bunch of them for Christmas and had been shotgunning them all. Yeah, sadly for people who are listening to this podcast and might just be turning their radios and volume knobs down as I say this, I actually read a lot more webcomics than I do actual print comics, and watch way too many TV shows. So if that's where all my references are coming from, that's why. Oh,
that's okay. I think that makes sense. Why you would really like Lumberjanes, because it's definitely it's definitely like a web comic kind of comic, and that seems kind of like a trivial way to put it, but it's certainly like a new.
It's a simpler story and a simpler style, and definitely a simpler humor than probably you're used to talking about on the show. But
yeah, that is another thing too. This is the first comic that I had not read before agreeing to do the podcast. I had regular listeners of this podcast know that most of the books we talk about are stuff that I've read a lot of, and or in the case of Skull Kickers, I had read some of it but not all of it, and so I haven't finished it. But Lumberjanes is one that is completely new. I mean, it's a completely new book. It just came out last year, and it hardly needs any explanation from me. It's won 2 Eisners. It's a very, very hot book right now, and in fact, it's actually one of the most requested books we've had to talk about on this podcast. And ironically, by one of Luke's friends, who Luke used to do the podcast regularly with me, and now he does it irregularly, and he couldn't be on this episode. So,
oh, that's a shame.
Unfortunate for him. Yeah, but so it goes. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Lumberjanes, and I am going to sound like an old man when I talk about this comic. I don't mean to imply that I disliked it in any way. That is not the case, but this comic made me feel old.
Well, I was actually going to bring up how dang precocious all these kids are. I don't know if it's the drawing style that makes them look older, but it's kind of more simplistic in that everyone kind of looks the same, so it's hard to tell anyone's age. But until they get in the presence of the camp leader, it's really hard to tell that they're kids.
Yeah.
They're so smart and observant.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I've just forgotten what it's like to be a kid. But
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
What especially made you feel old about this?
Just mostly in like the language of the book. Like it's not stuff that I'm unfamiliar with, but it's just like the way a lot of the characters talk, and a lot of the characters all speak very similarly. Like they all use a lot of the same lingo and slang, which it's not like it's not inappropriate for the book. Like when I was a kid, me and all of my friends, we all talked exactly the same, you know. So I'm not like it even still applies to what this book is, which is a group of kids at summer camp. But yeah, like it actually I would say maybe it took me a little bit to warm up to the book. I think once it kind of like clicked in my head, I'm used to reading like a lot of, well, maybe that's not entirely true. I like a good dense comic book, but not entirely dense. Like one of our most popular episodes we talk about is Skull Kickers, and Skull Kickers is one of the lightest, just like pure candy-coated fun you could ever have.
Yeah, you guys cannot stop talking
exactly.
about all the jokes.
And it's funny. And Lumberjanes is a funny book too. It's got a really fun attitude.
It's a different kind of funny. It's like a newer writing style that I've seen a lot, and Noelle uses it a lot in Nimona, which is another thing that I'll probably go into a lot of tangents about in this episode. But it's like, it's full of randomness, and it's a bit hard to describe. Everyone very much talks about what's going on right now, how they're feeling right now, and they don't pull any punches. Like, I remember there's a bit in Nimona where Nimona gets shot in the leg, and she's a sidekick to an evil supervillain named Lord Ballister.
This is a different book by Noelle Stevenson.
Noelle Stevenson, yeah.
Noelle Stevenson,
who also writes Lumberjanes. And so Blackheart is like trying to carry Nimona into his lab or whatever so that he can fix her leg. She's squirming around, and he's chiding her for squirming. And basically her response is, "Oh, that must be so inconvenient for you."
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the style.
Yeah, it's I've read a little bit of Nimona, and I like Noelle Stevenson. She's pretty funny, and she's got a good I like the bigger aspects of the stories that she's telling. Like with Lumberjanes specifically, I think this, depending on like maybe how old you are or where your opinion stands on the issue, I think one of the biggest things I would say about Lumberjanes is that the story feels like it's written for a video game as opposed to like a comic. And I don't mean that to be dismissive, because I just think it's a different style of writing is all I mean. And
no,
so,
that's interesting. Can you give like an example?
Well, just the way like the world, you're just kind of thrown into it, and it's kind of vague on what's going on, and it's really the focus is on the action and the characters. So it's all about the character interaction, and there's really like almost no world building early on. You know, they get it once they get into the plot, but it's all stuff that like develops as you move from action scene to action scene, and like each issue they move to like a different section with a different challenge. Yeah, you know, it feels very, in that sense, it to me it felt like a video game. Okay, and
no, that makes sense. I was rereading them in preparation for this podcast, and I was kind of struck by how everything is visually there at the beginning. You're right in that there's not a lot of verbal explanation for what's going on. But, like, in the background, you see the out-of-order outhouse. The bear woman comes in the first chapter, even though we don't actually see her for a while. What else? They passed the Cave of Trials in, like, the second book.
Yeah, which I did. I loved that joke. When like it's like the second issue where they go into the cave, and then at the end of the story they're like building to the big climax, and like they're like, now we have to go through this cave, and the Lumberjanes are like, oh, we already did that a long time ago.
The two statues are like playing chess together.
Yeah, that was a great joke. That was a really good one. But yeah, so like I guess I should have specified. We're specifically talking about the first story arc, which, as I understand it, that's initially how it was just pitched to be an 8-issue series, and then
I believe so. Yeah,
it caught on so much that they extended it to an ongoing. So it's a fun like it gets into a little bit of like mythology. There's sort of like an epic.
Specifically Greek mythology.
Yeah.
There's Zeus and Diana and Apollo. Sorry, Artemis and Apollo.
Artemis, yeah. Yeah, with the whole like story revolving around Zeus, Artemis, and Apollo. How like the forest is populated with little like monster creatures and
that are all kind of pawns in this big game that's going on.
Right, and then like the more the story goes, the more you kind of like you're slowly kind of unboxing the whole thing. It really felt like it's just funny because you and I were both talking about this earlier. It felt like playing Earthbound or something like Earthbound.
Oh yeah,
a game like that, which. I enjoy Earthbound, but I can't say I'm a tremendous fan of it, only because I haven't finished it. When we're talking about Super Nintendo RPGs, I'm much more in with the Super Mario RPG, or
which
Chrono
I have
Trigger.
never finished, unfortunately. So
yeah, that's nothing beats Super Mario RPG. I will fight anybody over that one. But video game nonsense aside, I like I said, it took me a little while to warm up to Lumberjanes because it just it did feel like it was not necessarily for me. And I don't mean that because I'm a guy and that this is a book that's marketed toward girls. I mean that more like it's I believe it was also marketed toward like younger, like kids, like all ages. So I read lots of all ages books. We just talked about Battling Boy just a few episodes ago, which is like the ultimate kids book, in my opinion. Like it's the ultimate boys adventure book. And I would say Lumberjanes actually works really well as sort of like the ultimate girl adventure book. But like I said, once I kind of got into the style of it, and once I kind of wrapped my head around what I see as a video game style of writing, and it just kind of kept jumping from like moment to moment. I liked the way it climaxed, and I liked the way the story finally came together.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of story. It's I don't want to mean this in a bad way. It's more frivolous, I think. It's easier to read. It's almost like popcorn literature.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is actually what I really enjoy. Because I don't have a lot of time to read comics, I prefer short little snippets like that, and stuff like webcomics that I can just read once a day. And I think there's definitely a market for that out there. There definitely should be.
Obviously there is, with the success of Lumberjanes. I think that people want it, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, something that can lift your spirits after a long day is great, and that's kind of what I want to aspire to someday, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it's good aspirations.
Thanks.
So, what would you say? Let me rephrase what the question I was going to ask you. Let's talk a little bit about the main characters, the girls. There are 5 of them.
Yes, let's try to remember their names and fail miserably.
I might cheat and just pull up a little Wikipedia right here.
Here we go. I'm going to pull out the Noelle Stevenson cover to issue 2. It's got all the girls minus their counselor Jen on it.
Oh, okay.
And I've given you a freebie, so there you go. And flipping through this, I am going to just interject here that I love all of their exclamations that they use in place of curse words. I don't know what any of them mean other than they're like mostly references to female authority figures.
Oh yeah, when they say like Joan Jett. And,
Holly Mae Jameson is the one on this page. And eventually they get to Juliette Gordon-Low, who was the founder of the Girl Scouts. It's the only one I know. But I think that's funny, and that's a cute little...
it's just all references to like successful female pioneers of something.
I think that's something cool to include in a book about girls.
Well, sure, I definitely... That's definitely part of the whole, like, the voice of the comic is...
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
back to the girls' names.
Mm-hmm.
Mal is the one who wears a lot of flannel.
Okay.
And I remember that because I once took a Which Lumberjane Are You quiz online, and that is who I got.
So we've got the main 5 Lumberjane characters. Jo, she's the tall girl. April,
right,
is the she's the little red-haired one, best friend
Jo's
with Jo.
best friend, yeah.
And Molly is the blonde girl with the raccoon hat. And Ripley is the really young one, the super energetic wild one. And then Maul, who's like the punk rock one.
Yep.
And then, like you said, Jen is their camp counselor.
Yes.
So one of the things, again, that sort of made it feel like video game to me, is that the way it did feel sort of like your party, and like they all kind of had their own like unique like attribute or skill that they would be able to pull out. Yeah. Which, I mean, works. That's a standard thing for fiction. Like I mean, you know, like, yeah, that's
D&D.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the Justice League, like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do get the episode after episode where each person gets their moment to shine.
Yeah, where they do like their thing that's really useful.
And even Jen gets her moment at the very end there, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even she, who's, as she starts out as like the authority figure because she's there,
right? Easily distractible.
Well,
really
she's the scout leader she's the scout leader who's supposed to be controlling them, but they keep running out into the woods and having adventures. But yeah, even at the end, she gets to save the day with her knowledge of astronomy. I almost said astrology, and I was really trying not to. I wasn't going to say astrology, but I had to double check that. But yeah, so of the characters, was there any one in particular that you felt like you identified with the most?
It's gonna sound dumb, but I really love when like Jo pulls out all of her math skills, especially the Fibonacci sequence bit in the cave. Right. I guess I was always good at math in like primary school, like up to 12th grade, because I didn't have to try really hard. And then I got to college and I figured out what real math was, and that's why I don't use my physics degree. But I really admire anyone who can think like that and just comprehend all of these crazy, insane... Oh, I'm forgetting common words again. This is the thing I do, folks. So it's just these crazy, like, out-of-the-box concepts, like math.
Yeah, math has always been a mystery to me. I absolutely respect people who can do math.
Yeah. But I did get to love Jen because I also love astronomy, so that also is one of my buttons. What about you? Any characters stand out for you?
I you know, maybe it's a little bit of a gimme, but honestly, I kind of really like Ripley. Honestly, it's just like
the most random character in this random comic book.
The young do anything, you know, act without thinking. Yeah, that's. Maybe because in a sense she's the most boyish of all of them. I don't know. It reminded me of when I was a kid.
There's a good answer.
But I really liked the bit about Molly's hat being an actual...
randomly being an actual raccoon?
Yeah, actual raccoon.
Which comic is that? Because it's quite the way down the line. And
yeah,
like,
it's
they
like... They
set up every joke except that one for some reason.
Yeah. It's like a ways down.
It's the one where they're playing Capture the Flag.
That's right. Because she just, all of a sudden the hat just turns into a raccoon.
Issue 5. Here it is. Which kind of got me, but so far it's the only time that they've done that with a joke, so I'm going to let it slide. Because it's a raccoon and it's friggin' adorable.
Yeah.
And the raccoon actually helps them win Capture the Flag.
Yep.
So, any part of the art that you enjoyed?
I think thought the art did its job. I can't say I'm like a huge fan of.
It's Brooke Allen that does the illustrations.
Yeah, Brooke Allen. I didn't think there was anything particularly wrong with it. Just stylistically, wasn't like. I thought it was fine. I really. I know this is sort of like a cop-out answer, but it didn't like really like move me one way or the other. Like I didn't really think there was anything terrible about it, but it didn't like affect me the way like other artists do. I do like Noelle Stevenson's her style a bit more. Just I like her.
Like in Nimona.
Yeah,
like
in
earlier
Nimona,
today,
yeah.
So.
I like her figures a little bit more, and I like the. I mean, I'm a big fan of Kate Beaton. I really like the comic Hark of Vagrant, and this all kind of feels very stylized, like in that vein. I don't want to say derivative because that's not what I mean, but I do mean it is very like.
Kind of like pays homage.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like it's stylized in a similar way to that.
Well, I gotta say that I love Marta Laiho's colors.
It is I do love the colors in the book. Very colorful book, and I think that's very important for, especially for like an all ages book. Mm-hmm. Good bright colors are essential.
And they do such a good job in the different scenes. Like as a colorist myself, I love these kinds of things where you go, to the moonlit scenes and it's like beautiful blues and all of these wonderful rim lights and everything. But she does all of these. I'm just kind of flipping through issue 5 here. But there's just great simple gradient effects, like when the bear woman transforms. All of the action flashes in this action-filled page. The glowy effects on the raptors that are like almost invisible, so it's like a subconscious thing that you're noticing these magical raptors. Aside from the fact that they have this weird eye thing on their chest, but that's another story. But yeah, I think the colors are amazing, rich and vibrant, definitely vibrant. But muted when they need to be, so that the rest of the book can do its job as well. And I think that's a sign of a great colorist. I hope.
Yeah, I actually would say the colors really make the book. Again, talking about the joke about the raccoon hat. Actually, I don't know how much if this was a setup or not, but did you remember the scene early when they're in the cave? And the wall is coming down, and they do the Indiana Jones homage. And she reaches back in and grabs the hat really quick, and they say something like, the hat's not worth it, and she like risks everything to get the hat back. Which that's one of those things where like people who've heard me like complain and whine contemptuously about like tiny little things in like the iZombie or the X-Men. The iZombie TV show or the X-Men Days of Future Past movie. That's one of those things where I'm like, if the hat is a raccoon, why didn't it crawl away? But at the same time, maybe it just didn't because it just didn't. I don't know.
Let me just go through it one more time. But my initial thought was like that was the one thing that they hadn't planned yet. So that's like the one plot hole in here, which is totally fine.
Yeah, it doesn't even
you can't write everything.
I don't even know if you'd call it a plot hole per se. It's just like it's like an old style. Like you could win an old style Marvel No prize just for coming up with a reason why the raccoon fell off her head.
Yeah, she actually doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And, Mal runs down to help her and bruises her arm against the door, and so the action is immediately turned to, oh no, Mal's hurt, and Molly's just overreacting like crazy. So yeah,
now,
I wonder what they were thinking.
In the cave scenes, did you get all those Indiana Jones references to everything? Like, of course, there's the hat under the door. That's the classic Indiana Jones. But even that Fibonacci sequence,
right, where the tiles fall out from under them.
Yeah,
a little bit. There weren't any swinging axes though, which I
kind of kept waiting for that.
Time,
yeah, I was waiting for that, or like poison darts to like shoot out the wall or something.
Oh, there were darts.
Oh yeah, they did
at some point.
There was something about that.
It was right before they get to the owl. Yes, they had just beaten the arm wrestling championship statue, and Molly steps on a floor tile, and there's randomly arrows.
Yeah, that's an Indiana Jones reference.
Yeah,
the floor tile that unleashes the arrows. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of little Indiana Jones homages in that whole sequence,
which is great.
Yes, yeah, it's nice.
What else to talk about? I've just found April's mint-colored shirt in this arm wrestling scene, and I don't know why, but I love it to death, especially next to the pink shorts. Like the color sense on these outfits is just great, and yeah, it looks like they all do kind of have different color schemes, which I'd never really noticed before, but it's great. And I can't wait until you get to the issue with all of their backstories in it, because Ripley's is adorable.
Yeah.
Might make you bawl your eyes out, but you actually get a little bit of that in the anthology, the horror anthology issue, which is issue 9, I believe, which is the last one that you've read, right?
I actually haven't read it. I have a digital copy of it, but I haven't read it.
Well, it's definitely a different style of story, because literally every single story in this, so they're finally doing the trope of sitting down and all telling spooky ghost stories, and they Noelle and Shannon take the time to explore different types of storytelling in each of these stories. Sorry, and everyone in the group gets to tell a story, so you get to see what they're most afraid of. Who is better at telling a story than other people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there's a bunch of different art styles. I think this one has the most illustrators out of all of the books so far. I think I've only read to like 14, so don't take my word for that. But yeah, it's really great. It's definitely a departure from what they normally do, but it's a good departure. So I can't wait until you read that.
Yeah, I need to read it.
You'll have to like do an edit at the end.
Just like add that in there.
Interject that, yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we don't have to like go into this if you don't want to go into it, but I was gonna say, like, do you think that this book is sort of like the girl version of like Adventure Time?
You know, I've not actually seen a lot of Adventure Time.
Oh,
so
really?
I'm not really the person to ask about this. But it seems like Adventure Time's a lot more random than Lumberjanes is.
Yeah.
And doesn't it have a lot of different genders and styles of people? Lumberjanes is mostly
Lumberjanes mostly just follows the
women
girls
with a smattering of dudes every once in a while.
I just mean in like terms of like just the style, not just the style, but like the storytelling. Like Adventure Time is all about young boys going on an adventure and rescuing princesses, and Lumberjanes is about girls like working together, becoming friends, and overcoming all their problems with science and math
and friendship
and friendship. Yeah.
Which is the big thing. How much friendship is there in Adventure Time?
Well, it's still a main thing, because it's all about the best friends of Jake and Finn. So, like, I'm not saying they're different. I'm saying that they are. That's what I'm saying, is that they're the same. It's just like one is more like geared toward boys and one is more geared toward girls.
I don't know. I'd say definitely in the marketing aspect, but I don't really see why a boy wouldn't like the Lumberjanes story.
Oh, sure. And the same thing with Adventure Time. I mean, girls like Adventure Time just fine, as far as I know. Other than you.
I liked what I've seen. So, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I really like Noelle and all of her her friends and what they're doing in the comics world, because they're trying to bring attention to the fact that we really have to stop thinking of stories as boy or girl oriented, and really think about more of the content of those stories. Because you don't like this book as much as other books because of the style of storytelling. It's not because of who the book is geared
Exactly,
to.
yeah. It's not about who... Well, I mean, I was going to say it's not about, like, the characters of the book, but I would maybe say, I would posit at least that the storytelling style that I thought is... I can see why people like it, but it's not necessarily something I'm into. I can see that being something that girls would like more often than boys, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so.
And then that's why we get it, and that's why it kind of like breaks into this whole like it's geared toward girls and geared toward boys. And you know, and I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. I think it's great. I actually think we need more comics that are offering to a wider array of people. You know, I think we need more kids comics. We need more comics that are geared toward girls. We need comics that are geared toward boys. For too long, it's all just been kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's all geared toward 45-year-old man children, which I do not approve of.
Uh-oh. And how old are you, Aaron?
I am too old. Old enough to party.
As are we all.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I don't mean to like say, I don't mean to imply that like Lumberjanes is like a girls' comic, like in a bad way. I just
anyway. I hope there are more comics like this that are produced in the world, and
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, I'm glad they're pioneering this
people
path.
imitate success, you know, and with the success that this has had, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of people influenced and inspired by it.
Yeah, I hope so. And maybe even the money-grubbing companies will do more like this.
And that's the other thing too is like is just
to make money, and then we will have one.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting people to just see, you know, that something can make money. So if it makes money, then you're going to keep making it. You know? Because like that was the thing, we talked about this in the Battling Boy podcast, where Paul Pope, the creator of Battling Boy, Battling Boy is an all ages adventure comic specifically geared toward young boys, and Paul Pope wanted to do a Kamandi book at DC, Kamandi, the DC character, and he went to DC with his pitch.
They told him to write for 45-year-old
men. They said we don't make comics for kids. We make comics for 45-year-old men, and that was like, oh, Paul Pope was like, oh, that's the end of that. I'll go make Battling Boy, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and that part of that problem is just that, you know, the bean counters, the money men, that's their job, and they're you know, it's just it takes somebody in that position with a little bit of vision or a little bit of willing to risk to really like prove a point and get things out there. Or just got to go somewhere else for it. I mean, this book wasn't produced by like Marvel or DC. It's by Boom. You know, if other places aren't going to do it, then somebody else will, and they're going to they'll reap the benefits for it.
Yay,
as it should be. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. What would you say? We talked about a lot of the fun scenes in this the Lumberjanes part. What would you say was your favorite bit? I'm sure there are plenty. Because I can tell you what mine was almost instantly.
Okay, maybe you better go first because mine's in issue 10, and I'm trying to think of another one right now.
Your favorite bit is actually in the second one. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did like the way the story climax. It came together to a nice climax. We didn't really talk about the actual plot. The plot was...
should we spoil it? I don't know.
Well, we spoil a lot of things on this podcast, and honestly, I think most people have read it. But most people listening to this have probably read the book, I should say. But the plot kind of turns into Artemis and Apollo both in a competition to see who's going to get Zeus's ultimate power. And I do like the way it ends. It's a nice little perfect ending of Ripley getting in the way and Ripley getting all of the power. Mm-hmm. And so she has like unlimited, omnipotent power, and she uses it to give everybody a kitten.
And also to give the raccoon a hat.
And yeah, she wishes the raccoon had a hat, which was like that. Those were great jokes, and those totally got me. I am a sucker for cute animals. As much as I am. I'm a big tough boy who doesn't like girl comics, but I also love cute little animals. So yeah, yes. I love that. I love that bit.
Your cat is staring at us from the corner as well.
Yes. She's just waiting for us to finish so we can go give her attention.
Yes.
But yeah, no, when she said, because she's sitting there and she goes, I wish, and then, I wish he had a hat. And then I wish everyone had a kitten. And then just everybody like has a kitten suddenly. It just kittens pop everywhere.
And those kittens come back later, actually.
Oh, that's pretty funny. That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Oh, that's great.
But you reminded me of my favorite bit in the first arc, which is that the twist that Artemis and Apollo are still just fighting children.
Yeah.
Who don't care about anything except what they're going to do with all of this power. Mm-hmm. So they're fighting over who gets the hemispheres, and in the end, for some reason, the camp leader has a direct line to Zeus, and she called him down, and he comes around in the form of this giant anthropomorphic goat.
Oh, it was a cow. It was a cow wearing a tie.
Some kind of ungulate, yeah. And he's like, "Oh, your mom has the car this weekend, so you're taking the Goat Express."
Yeah,
who wants ice cream for dinner?
He's making a bunch of lame dad jokes. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah.
So yeah, which is just like the Greek gods to not have changed in 1,000 years. I do love the boys' camp, actually. Mm-hmm. That all the boys really want to do is bake cookies and have the girls over for a nice conversation.
Yeah, they're all nice and polite, and they listen to their scoutmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I love little twists like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's so many more little bits that I just love, but
yeah, just have to read the book to see them all.
Hey, what a book!
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easy for me to see why this book blew up the way that it did. It's certainly charming. I think that's what I would say. Is it's a charming book.
And I will say that after the first arc, starting in issue 10, things start to get a lot more character driven. Mm-hmm. And there is some backstory, and you learn about their motivations, which I love. So it might turn into more of a story that you like.
Sure.
I like that they can do that they can switch that out as they want to, and it's fun to see a story get more mature like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was exactly just as an example I brought up earlier. That's exactly what happened with Adventure Time. It started off as just a dumb random cartoon mm-hmm. where nothing matters, and then it's sort of developed into a more mature, with an actual backstory and character.
That's neat.
So yeah, it sounds like it's very similar in that respect. As it grows, it mm-hmm. sort of, again, to me, that's still drawing the video game comparison, because it really just kind of starts off as something really small, and the more you play it, the more time you put into it, or read it, the more time you put into it, it mm-hmm. grows and grows and grows and gets into this really big thing.
Mm-hmm. Which I love. That's also one of the things I love about Nimona, mm-hmm. Is it starts off very gaggy. The chapters are very short, 1 or 2 pages.
Yeah.
And then the farther you go, the longer these chapters get, the more that happens, the more consequences there are that shape the action. And also the more art evolves. We'll have to do some kind of a webcomics podcast at some point.
Sure.
Where I talk about literally the tons of webcomics that I read. But I love those little backstage moments where you get to see the growth of an artist over the course of a book or over the course of a comic.
That's one of the most rewarding things about reading an ongoing book that has the same artist, is watching them develop their style.
Mm-hmm. Or even a writer as well.
Sure, just watching everything develop, Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
And Lumberjanes certainly has that. Nimona has that. I'll definitely have to check out the other things that these other artists have done. Ellis, Waters, and Williams.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe, if I am not mistaken, Waters is the editor of the book, and she was the one working at Boom Studios who contacted Grace and Noelle to help develop this.
Yeah, Grace Ellis is credited as a writer, so...
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, Noelle and Grace both co-write it, and I believe Waters is the editor.
Okay.
But they're all credited as creators of it.
Oh, and can I say that I also love the badge names? Like the horrible pun badge names?
Okay, that was actually... The horrible pun badge actually was probably the first joke that really made me laugh out loud. Like, just the actual look of the badge is great. I love that.
The really
image.
Annoyed gesture.
The gesture that's not smiling and very straight face. No, that was a really good visual gag. I really like that.
The friendship bracelet one called? Because even the really mundane ones have these amazing names that just leave you in stitches. What is this? Turning to the friendship bracelets. Friendship to the Craft, which I'm sure is
Friendship to the Max.
Friendship to the Max reference. But yeah, oh gosh, this is another one that you haven't read. Chapter 10 is the one that I most recently read because I thought we were going to talk about it.
But
it turns out to be the beginning of the next arc. But the badge that they go after in that one is Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fondant, which is about cake decorating.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And yeah, the most boring one is the first one, the Up All Night badge. But the rest of them after that are just hilarious. Robin Hood, the Archer
Robin.
one is literally called Robin Hood,
yeah.
Which makes me wonder what kind of test they have to take to actually get that badge.
Right.
Do they actually have to put the arrow in the other arrow? Oh. But yeah, it's definitely the little things that make this comic. It's a lot of really well done little things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a nice it comes together really nicely. The whole is just a really nice package.
Yeah. I mean, back to the popcorn analogy, even, it's all really good popcorn. Mm-hmm. So, the sum, I guess, is a really awesome bag of movie popcorn. It's, seasoned just right.
Yes.
Is that about it?
I think that's going to cover, certainly all I think I can say on Lumberjanes. But, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So, yeah, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Sarah, for being on the show, of course. I am Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook, and I'm also on Twitter at AAWALTHER. That's AA Walther on Twitter. And you can find comics that I write at newhavencomics.com and on my website, aaronwalther.com. And you can find new episodes of this very podcast at comicdna.podbean.com. Sarah, where can people find some of your stuff?
My webcomic, How We Stay Sane at Work, is at the aptly named howwestaysaneatwork.com. I'm also on Twitter at Rude Sara, that is RUDESARA, and Tumblr as Project Shiro. That's Shiro spelled SHIRO. projectshiro.tumblr.com. Yeah, that's about it.
All right, well, let's see. I was going to put in a bit. Actually, in the last episode, I had said that we were going to be doing the old Alan Moore Superman homage book Supreme, but we had to postpone that episode while I got some other guests lined up. So that is why we're not doing that episode next, and why we are doing Lumberjanes, because Sarah is in town for comic book convention, Project Comic Con, so it's the perfect time to sit down and talk about it.
Yep.
So. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you all next time.